What's up, and welcome back to Opposites Attract Podcast. This is Sonja Ramirez, your girl, and I'm sitting next to my man,
Miguel Ramirez. What's up, babe?
What's up?
This is a solo podcast. Well, solo for us.
It feels like it's been a long time since we've actually
It's only been two.
A podcast together. I know.
But the next few, just for you, so you guys know, the next few are going to be just Sonja and I.
Yes.
And we've got, there's been so much that we've been doing and stuff that's been going on that we want to get into.
Yeah. I miss you.
Oh.
I miss talking to you. Jerk. You're too slow, man. You got to get with it. You got to get
babe,
with it,
I couldn't even get to the sound effects
I
page.
can't get to it.
Anyway. So, just to give you guys a heads up, Sonja and I today went to, a marriage conference.
Yes.
5 love languages marriage conference. Yes. You might have seen a post on Instagram a couple days ago.
On
Instagram, Facebook, on our social media. And we went to a marriage conference.
Yeah. So I heard about the 5 love languages a while back. Miguel and I, at one point, I felt like we were just growing apart. I felt we were growing apart. We had different goals. We didn't really have any common goals. And so I started to feel a certain way. I got into reading the Bible. Are you smelling your microphone?
No. That's gross. No. That's not.
I thought I heard you. I'm like, what are you doing, you weirdo? No.
No,
I'm not smelling. Did you brush your teeth?
Yes, I brushed.
I'm just saying that I have all that funk on my mic. Anyways, that's your mic, so it's all good. Back to what I was saying. I felt like we were going through some difficult times, and he didn't have a clue. Anyways, I started reading the Bible, and it's so crazy because everything, the man is head of household.
That's
it
right.
talks about being submissive,
That's
submit to
right.
your husband. And so I decided that I was going to submit. And I'm a very strong woman. I have a very strong personality. And so, but I love my man. So I decided that, I was going to do some things. And so I started waking up early in the morning, making his lunch.
Yeah.
I even surprised him one day at work.
That was super cool.
I stole his vehicle.
That was super cool, and I didn't even notice what happened with my windshield.
I know.
My brother was visiting.
Yeah.
And what did we do? We went out somewhere, and you're like, you guys didn't notice? So my windshield on my car had cracks that went across the entire windshield.
Yeah.
And she came and stole my car while I was at work.
Because I have the spare key.
Yeah, she's got the spare key. So she stole my car. She got it washed. And she got the windshield replaced.
No. So that day I got it detailed, got it washed, all that good stuff. And then I'm always sneaky, in a good way.
Yeah.
And I had one of my friends who does windshields for a living.
That was the same day.
You and I left.
No, it was a different day?
It was a different day because you and I had to go grocery shopping. So we went shopping, Costco and Fry's in my car. And while we were gone, I gave him access to our garage and he came in and fixed your windshield.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then you had to go somewhere. Anyway, so I just started doing these extra things for him and just kind of started stepping up my game. And then...
So, yeah.
Yeah, 5 love. One of my friends is like, hey, have you ever read the 5 love languages? And I'm like, no. And then your friend also
so it was at about the same exact time.
Yeah.
I mean, it was within like a week. It was kind of weird. Mm-hmm. But her friend said, hey, have you read the 5 love languages? And then one of my friends from work, he was like, hey, man, I've been going through some things. And there's this book that I really like. It's called the 5 love languages. He's like, you should check it out. And then... just kind of with us talking back at home, I don't know if you mentioned something or I mentioned something, but it was like, oh yeah, my friend told me about that book too. So we ended up getting the audiobook.
Yes.
And it's called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman, Dr. Gary Chapman.
Yes.
And it's an awesome book. It's a really good book for anybody that's married. And there's like this, when we went to this seminar, this conference, he's got a lot of books about 5 love languages for people that are married, for people that are single, for teenagers, for parents that have teenagers, for military people, for all kinds of stuff. But we'll put a link to the book that we got in the description of the
Yes.
videos and in the description of the podcast, so you guys can pick it up if you want to. We definitely suggest it.
So let's get into it. Okay. So, I mean, not get into it, but
I just like for one thing that I want to mention, like this conference that we went to was put on at a church. And I already knew before we signed up for this conference. I mean, but you know me. Like those of you that listen to the podcast, you guys know how I am. You know what I think. And
but
for those of you that maybe that are
Yeah,
just
new.
starting to listen to the podcast, maybe you got a flyer on your car from the conference because, you know, I had to go hit up all the cars while we were there.
Right.
You know, I am not spiritual.
Yeah.
I'm not spiritual. I'm not religious. But
What are you?
I'm agnostic. Babe, you don't have...
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
You try to rope me and trick me back into
I'm just
saying that I'm spiritual.
They may not know.
I'm just saying. Yeah. So I'm not. I just believe that maybe something created like the beginning, but I don't know if anything affects us anymore. Anyway, that's just my belief. I mean, you can believe whatever you believe. That's great. That's fine. But I'm not, like I mentioned on one of our previous podcasts, I'm not opposed to learning from religion. I mean, there's a lot of great things, and this book, a lot of the teachings from the book are from the Bible.
Right.
And this event was put on at a church, and he is the Gary Chapman, he is a pastor, and it was awesome. I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah, it was. We're going to get into a little more of that, but listen, marriage is challenging. It is. Miguel and I are going to be
Marriage
going
is suffering.
We're going to be going on 12 years. And it doesn't, I mean, we've had a pretty good marriage.
Yeah.
We've had some challenges. And during this time when the love language was introduced to us, I felt like we were growing apart. And I had no idea, like, you know, if you're going through some things right now in your marriage and you're feeling disconnected, you have to read this book or listen to the audio.
Yeah.
Because I feel, and this is something he was open to do with me. So we were both listening to it, discussing it. We talked about, you know, what our love language is. And it's so crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, this book helped us tremendously. It
did.
really did. And so if you are at that verge and you're feeling like, you know, you're starting to look the other way, get this book. Like, get this book.
Well, the thing is also that he mentioned today at the conference was a lot of the people that needed to be at the conference, that really, really needed to be at the conference, were not at the conference.
Right.
Like, the people that were there are people that probably already have a decent marriage. They're just working on making it better.
Right.
Which is kind of where we're at. Mm-hmm. You know, like we feel, how did you feel after the conference?
I felt good. I felt enlightened because I felt like it was confirmation. Like, you and I are on the same road. Like, we're on the same path.
Yeah.
You know, and everything we're doing together. Our communication is down, even though, you know, we still have arguments, disagreements, but we're starting to open up more and talk about the things that really trigger us. Like, we'll stop in the middle of a discussion and think about what just happened.
And this podcast is helping a lot too.
Yes.
Thank you guys for listening. And thank you guys for helping us, because this also helps us.
It does. But, you know, with our communication, it was confirmation for me saying, man, like I fist pumped you.
Yeah, we did in the middle of the conference.
Yes. Like, you know, we're doing good. We're doing good. But there's always room for growth. Like, there's always room for growth. And no matter what, he said, you know, continue to do these things. Go to a marriage conference once a year.
Actually, when you were upstairs and Audrey was down here, our daughter, I explained to her, because you started telling her where we went today, but you didn't finish. So I told her, I was like, you know, we went to a marriage conference today. And she was like, what is that? I was like, well, where you work on your marriage and you talk about things. And then I asked her, I was like, what do you think about our marriage? Like, do you think we have a good marriage?
Oh,
and she's
you
like,
asked her?
yeah. And she's like, yeah. She's like, I think it's good. You guys argue sometimes, but you fix it.
Really?
Yeah, that's what she said.
Aw, you're gonna make me cry.
But I told her, I was like, so why would we go to a marriage conference then?
Yeah.
And then I reminded her, I was like, I tell you all the time, just like jujitsu, just like singing, just like your schoolwork, you may be good at it, but you can get better.
Right.
And that's why we went to the marriage conference. And so we can go and learn new things and share it with you guys.
So, I mean, how did you feel about it?
I felt the same way. I felt, I loved it. And I felt that a lot of the things that we're doing, a lot of the stuff that we talk about, like one of the main things that they talked about at the conference and one of the main things that we always talk about is communication. Yep. And that is a huge, huge thing in relationships and in being married. Yeah,
because no matter what, if you're having a shitty day or you're not aligned, whatever it may be, and you come home upset, and if we don't have that down and you come and you're barking orders and you're doing this and doing that, and I ask you, hey, what's going on? And you're like, you know what? Nothing. And walk away.
Yeah. So one of the things that they did say while we were there is that 86% of people say their marriage failed because of a lack of communication. A lot of people think it's finances, but even if you really think about it, the finance thing probably could be helped by communication.
Right.
Because if you communicate well, you can both get on the same page and hopefully fix the finances.
Right.
So maybe that's even at the base of that, or at the, the root of the finances. And
a lot of it too is taking responsibility. Taking ownership. Yeah, taking ownership. Here he was giving us examples of, a wife, judging the husband. He was saying that he had a couple going, and this wife was just so distraught. Like, she was so sad, so broken, and their marriage was about to end, and she's like, I don't feel that he loves me anymore. We don't talk anymore. We don't spend time anymore. And she's bawling, and the husband's right there, and the husband's like, I mean, what do you mean? I make dinner.
I go to work.
I come
home.
Mm-hmm.
I fold the clothes. I mow the grass. I fix the house. I change the oil in the cars. I mean, what more does she want me to do?
Yeah. Like, I show her every day how much I love her. Like, everything I do is because I love her. And here she is. She's still like, it's like they're not connecting.
They're missing
not
each
connecting. Other. Yes. That's what, a lot of couples, they miss each other, and it's because everyone has a different love language. The man's love language was acts of service. Same thing with Miguel, acts of service, and we tend to love each other the way we want to be loved. Yes. Like, I'm very affectionate with you.
Just real quick before we get into all that, let's explain what the 5 love languages are. So the 5 love languages are words of affirmation. Mm-hmm. So what would that be?
Baby, I'm so proud of you. You did a great job today. Or congratulations on, your jiu-jitsu tournament. I appreciate you.
Whatever.
I appreciate you taking out the trash. I appreciate you putting clothes in the washer.
Yeah. So that would be for some people like that is the way, that they feel loved.
Right.
Other people, it's gifts.
Yes.
And it doesn't have to be diamond studded earrings or a Rolex or.
It could be you going out for a walk and picking up a flower.
Like, if it was me, and like when we were at lunch, I was explaining to you, like, if gifts were my love language, like, if that jiu-jitsu is something that I love, and sometimes gis can be pretty expensive, like the uniform that we wear in jiu-jitsu. Like, I mean, you could pay $200-$250 for a gi or more.
Right.
And maybe you can't drop $200. But, like, let's say you're paying attention because you're trying to pick up on something, and you hear that there's these knee pads that I want to wear under my gi. Mm-hmm. And they're maybe $10 a piece.
Right.
That's not a big deal.
Right.
And, here, I got you these knee pads because I thought you could use them when you go do jiu-jitsu.
Right.
That's something that, for some people, that is their love languages, is just showing appreciation through
gifts.
A gift or buying somebody flowers or, whatever. Another one, like you were saying, was acts of service, is doing things for the other person.
Right. And I'll give you an example. So that's Miguel's love language. So, I work for myself. I don't have to get up at 4:30 every morning. I don't have to make your coffee, get it prepared every night, but because I know his love language now, I'm able to love him the way he wants to be loved. So yes, I get up at 4:30, or I'll make your coffee at night. I'll wash, the clothes and your ghee. Like I'll see he'll have his ghee out, so I go and I wash it without him asking me, or dinner, and acts of service. And
you made enchiladas for all the people at work my work.
Oh yeah.
And everybody said thank you. They were delicious.
They better say that. No.
Yeah. Spending quality time is another one.
Yes.
That's without the TV. That's devoting your time to the other person. Going out to dinner. And you know what? When he was talking about going out to dinner, like that was actually, like, I felt good, because he was talking about how you can tell the people that are dating and the people that are married when they go out to dinner. And that's not us. Like when we go out to dinner and we sit down and it's just me and you, like we'll talk through the entire dinner.
Yeah.
And but that is one, like spending quality time. And I know that that's something. And everybody, what he was saying, has a primary love language. And then maybe you have a secondary, but everybody has a primary love language. And then the last one is physical touch.
Right.
And not touching.
Physical.
Not touching your pee-pee. Not that kind of physical touch.
But that could be it, though. Intimacy.
Yeah, maybe.
Intimate. I mean, because that's my love language.
Well, it was funny because he was saying, like, a lot of the guys, he's like, that's what I'm talking about. That's mine. That's not.
He did say that. A lot of the guys are like, oh, yeah, because sex. I love me some sex.
Yeah. But he was saying, like, when you guys are the example he gave, like, if you guys are walking into the mall and she grabs your hand, how do you feel? Like, do you feel love? He's like,
does it? Yeah.
It doesn't really do anything for me. He's like, when you're sitting in the car, we've talked about this on the podcast. When you're sitting in the car and you're holding hands, how do you feel? It doesn't really do anything for me. Well, then the physical touch
is not your love language.
You like, but physical touch is not your love language. Yeah. It's probably acts of service, or it's something else.
So that is my love language.
So just to go over again, the 5 are words of affirmation, gifts, and it's the thought that counts with the gifts. It doesn't have to be something expensive. Acts of service, spending quality time, and physical touch.
Yes. And so it's crazy, though, because when we started recognizing our love language, I mean, I'm sure you picked it up right off the bat, because I used to complain about us being in the car and I would always have to be the one going for his hand. I want to hold hands when we're walking, or I love a kiss on the cheek, or when I'm washing dishes and he comes up and hugs me.
You want to make out.
What?
You want to make out like we're teenagers.
Shut the in public? Really?
No, probably not in public. But we can if you want to. You also like people watching.
Shut up, babe. Holy cow. Don't listen to him, you guys. I'm going to scratch that out.
We just lost some of the people that are listening from the event that we went to from the church. Hey, so if you're listening from that event, just know we keep it real on this podcast.
But no, there were so many things that he had talked about too, even about sex. I mean, I don't know if you even want to get into that portion yet.
We can get into that. But one thing that he did mention, when it comes to the 5 love languages, everybody has a primary, and your partner, I don't know if it's always, it might be always, your partner will always be something different than you.
Oh, yes. Like he did mention that.
They will never be the same love language as you.
How can they say that? How would he know?
I don't know.
Like 100%.
Or maybe it's, almost never. In a marriage, almost never does a husband and a wife have the same love language. So, So just understand. And that's the thing, is that because you know the way that you want to be loved. Like for me, it is acts of service, right?
And you have a secondary too.
Yeah, I do have a secondary, but I think for me it would be acts of service. So when and it was exactly the example that the other guy was talking about. When we were going through our thing, like I would have to tell you, it's like, I don't understand what more you want from me. I can't, like, there's not much more I can do. I freaking work all day. I come home and I'm folding clothes and I'm helping with dinner and I'm freaking cleaning this up and I go fix the car and I go do, it's like, what more could you possibly want from me?
And I'm thinking, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't he want to kiss me? Why doesn't he want to have, like I'm pretty physical when it comes into the bedroom, but like what's wrong? And I start to question myself. My self-confidence is starting to get affected and he doesn't get it. So yeah, you didn't let me finish that whole scenario. He was talking to us about the couple and that was their situation. Here she is crying, bawling, and he's like, what are you talking about? And so there was just a huge disconnect and we had that same disconnect, and so, yeah, it's been amazing. And he talked about sex and how we could also miss each other on that as well, because with women, it's mental. It's mental. And with men, he said you could just be, changing, from your daily clothes to your pajamas, and all of a sudden he's ready to go. Ready to go.
Well, what he was saying is like for us, for men, it's something that's in our DNA. Like it is it's just the way we're made.
Yeah, it's like, the way they're wired.
He's like, it's not the way that we're wired. It's just that the way our bodies are. Like we have genitals and our balls, and then you got to release. Like women don't have all that. You don't have to release anything. But I wrote down in my book, my balls are filling up as we speak. But
you're such a dork.
But so that's why, like for men, it's more of like a visual and it's quick. It's like, hey, let's go. But for women, it's like an emotional. You got to build it up. You got to work on it. It's like starting a fire.
I want you to talk to me. I want you to touch me, rub me, caress me, and
we're all over. We're all over the place with this freaking thing.
We are all over the place. Well, I didn't know you wanted to go
Babe,
in order.
Sex was the last thing we talked about.
Oh my God. Yeah, but that's the first thing I want to talk about. Here's the opposites. Okay. Here, this one is very structured. I want to start on page 1. And here I am like towards the end where it's talking about sex.
You see?
I'm more
stay focused.
Fun. Okay. He's the planner. I'm spontaneous. Geez. Like, hey, let's go. Let's have it. Anyways, go ahead.
So he was also talking about like different personalities. He was talking about like pretty much it was introverts and extroverts.
Right.
Like he called it like the Dead Sea, how nothing's going down in the Dead Sea.
Which is an introvert.
Which is an introvert. And then he was talking about the babbling brook, which the babbling brook is always, there's always flow and it's moving all the time. And that's just the person just nonstop talking. And he said communication is basically an act of the will, not determined by our personality. So you can choose the way you communicate. So sometimes if you know that you are a very talkative person, maybe you should chill a little bit. I mean, but you have to realize what's going on.
Right.
It was so funny because he was talking about how some people, they'll talk so much that they'll ask you a question. And when they ask you that question, if you don't answer that question immediately, if you leave any pause between that question and your answer, they're jumping back in and answering that question for you. Right. And they'll just keep on going for another 20 minutes.
Right.
Do
you remember that couple that he was talking about? The husband had passed away and she was saying how great of a man he was, and that he was a quiet gentleman, but just very loving, very caring. And Mr. Gary Chapman and his wife looked at each other like, is she talking about the same man? Because she made it seem like he was like a Dead Sea type of personality. But because she talked so much and would never really, give him the time to talk, the man would never talk.
So this is the example that he gave. He said that when they would go to church, he would be outside in the lobby. He would be meeting people and he would greet people and striking up conversations and talking to everybody.
Who's he?
The husband in this story. Yeah. He would talk to everybody in the lobby. He would go to church and, hey, how's it going? And just make conversation with everybody. And then, but the way his wife saw him
Right.
was as a very quiet person.
Right.
But that's just because she would never shut up and would never let him talk, you know? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So that was just funny to hear that. And I've learned, because I do talk a lot, but I have learned to listen.
Yeah.
You know, I've learned to listen, and I believe it's helped.
Yeah. So one thing that, when it comes to that, I wrote down here that most people listen for 17 seconds before they interrupt.
What page are you on?
Page 5. So it says most people listen for 17 seconds before they start interrupting. I think this is more, but either way, whether you're arguing or not arguing, I wrote that down under the argument section. But I mean, regardless, whether you're arguing or not arguing, I mean, that's true. Like a lot of times you're listening to respond instead of listening to understand, to try to understand what the other person's saying, to try to see where they're coming from. Like you're just listening just enough so that you can start formulating what you're going to say back to that person. And when it's in an argument, it's even worse.
Right.
Because at that point, what he was saying is like you're pretty much, while they're talking, you're loading your guns.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You're just thinking, oh, you know what? They said this. Well, that motherfucker's full of shit. And I'm going to say this. And oh, yeah. And about that, guess what? I got something for you for that, too. You know, that's what you're thinking in your head. And as soon as they're done talking, it's like pow, 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 pow.
Yep.
You just start firing back.
Yep. And you did not listen to one word that he said.
Yeah.
He said take turns.
Yeah.
You know,
take turns talking without interrupting.
Right.
And listen. I mean, that's something that we're telling you guys, but I need to work on. And we were just talking about this before we started this podcast. Literally, before we started this podcast, we were talking about the argument that we had a couple weeks ago that you guys can probably see one of the clips that we made where we're talking about this, not disrespecting your partner. And that's one thing that I told Sonia is like, you know what? I should have let you talk. I shouldn't have interrupted you. And that's where she told me to shut up and listen. And that's because I interrupted, you know? So in that sense, like we were both wrong. I shouldn't have interrupted. She shouldn't have told me to shut up and listen. And, you know, so just know we got stuff that we got to work on too.
Mm-hmm. And he's like, treat each other like humans.
Yeah.
Like treat each other like humans, you know, and no two humans think alike.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of times when we are having a disagreement, it's usually
because you're wrong.
Very stressful time. Like we're just bouncing off the walls and we are both stressed out. And then something comes up and we're just like done at that point, to where instead of listening to each other and calming ourselves down and giving ourselves time, we end up just blurting out whatever comes out. And then all of a sudden, it turns into an argument. In that type of situation, like he said, you know, like make sure that the timing is good. Like if you have something to discuss with your partner, let them know, hey, you know, there's something I want to discuss with you. You know, there's something, you know, I had to disagree, you know, whatever it may be. Maybe you were at work and we got into I don't know. But ask the other person for permission to talk about that right now.
Yeah. And if you're angry, maybe now is not the best time to do it.
Right. Right.
He said, speak when you're angry and you will make the best speech you will ever regret.
Right.
You know, and I was like, oh, this dude's talking to me. Because I'll be talking shit when I'm angry.
But I think a lot of people do. You know, a lot of people do.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and there's so much, you know, like you can say one thing and then mean something totally different. But because I'm in the wrong state of mind, I took it the wrong way.
Yeah.
You know, so really it's just knowing each other, paying attention, asking questions, and opening up to the other person. Like being able to really talk about what you're feeling.
Yeah. Speaking about feelings, there's something, it was like an exercise that he said that we can practice that is really good for working on like expressing your feelings. And one thing that he said was, tell me 3 things that happened today and how you feel about them. Like do that every day. When your husband gets home from work, or when your wife gets home from work, or at the end of the day, when you guys finally get settled down and you can sit down and hang out for a little bit. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't have to be long, but tell me 3 things that happened today and how you felt about them. You know, so I thought that was pretty cool. And then we kind of did an exercise of that while we were at the conference.
And that opens up communication.
Yep.
As well. Because like he said, you know, there's times where you'll come home and you're like totally exhausted from the day. And I'm like, hey, baby, how was your day? Which this doesn't happen much, but you're like, great. And walk upstairs.
Yeah, and the
like
thing is,
been gone for...
Like he was saying, he's like, you've been at work for 10 hours and you're summing up your 10-hour workday in one word. How was your day? Fine.
Right.
Same old shit. So you're summing up 10 hours with fine and same old shit.
Right. Right. So a lot of times we block the communication.
Yeah.
You know? And so that the 3 questions that you just came up with, or that he told us, or the activity to do, he said that will help you to start to communicate. And you could also use this with the kids. Like say you're at the family, you know, you're having a family dinner, you know, you could also use that with the kids to start to open up communication with your kids as well, which, you know, we do that at the dinner table. Like we tend to talk about, you know, how our day is and all that other good stuff. But
yeah.
Yep. So I thought that was really good.
Where you at?
I'm on page 9. Where are you at?
Damn.
But no, if you got some good stuff, I mean, I this conference was so good. I mean, if he comes to your area, I highly suggest you guys go.
Yeah, Gary Chapman. I would look him up. And the one thing that I regret about today is not having somebody else to go with us.
Yes.
Like there's so many people that I wish we could have at least let them know so that they could come with us. But we didn't. It's one of those things that you go and then you're like, oh shit. You know what? It's happened at comedy shows too. Like we'll go to a comedy show and we have a great time and it's like, man, I wish I would have had some other people here.
Yes, yes.
But one thing, this is something that, oh man, I want to, do you know where the books are that we wrote down the list at the end of the conference? The green notebook? Do you know where it's at?
Oh yeah, it's on the
Do you have yours where you wrote it down in your leather book, right?
Yes, but my leather book's over there as well.
Can you get
which book?
The pages that were ripped out that I wrote on?
The pages that were, I don't know where those are though, babe.
Okay, forget it.
Anyways,
anyway.
we can write it in the, so you know, we can write it in the notes.
So one thing that we that they talked about at the end of the conference was kind of like make a list of things that you know that you've pretty much messed up, things that you know that you need to work on.
Right.
But we'll get to that. I wanted to kind of go over that, but we've talked about. Yeah, no, I will. Obviously, we've talked about. You know, I get angry sometimes, and I know that I don't like being wrong. And when I argue, I don't like being wrong. And the thing is, if you always win your arguments, then you're married to a loser. And what does that say? I mean,
no, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
And you're not a loser.
Thank you, babe.
You know, it's like, well, maybe I'm the loser for thinking that way, you know? Yeah. So that's just, I was like, oh man, that sucks.
Yeah. He also talked about, which was, I mean, the room was pretty quiet when this came up because, you know, being married, I mean, there's couples, I'm sure, that are watching this that have been married for 20 plus years even. And there's a time where you know, like you guys just are not coming together. Like you're not coming together. You know, the physical attention may not be there. The intimacy may not be there. The communication may not be there. And things aren't going the way they, you know, they're not what they once were. And now you're thinking, you know what? We're growing apart. I don't know about this, and one day you end up at the coffee pot or by the coffee pot, right? Taking a break, and somebody shows up, and, you haven't been getting any attention whatsoever at home. And all of a sudden somebody comes and they're new and they're like, hey, good morning. And the other person looks at them like, oh my God, she just talked to me. She just talked to me. She just gave me some attention.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden that conversation turns out to a lunch date.
Yeah.
To a dinner date. And all of a sudden your mind is going and thinking negative thoughts about your marriage.
Yeah.
And he just said to avoid putting yourself in that type of situation, especially like when you're feeling vulnerable.
What he was saying is like when you walk up to that coffee pot and she says, hey, good morning. That may be the kindest thing he's heard in months. Because it's not coming from his wife.
Right.
And what it is like you get the tingles again.
Yes.
That's the sound effects for the tingles. Yes. He didn't have this giant production they had. They didn't have the sound effects for the tingles, but we do on this show. Yeah. So they're getting the tingles from.
That's the butterflies, women. The butterflies that your husband or boyfriend used to once give you once upon a time when he would call you or give you that kiss, and all of a sudden you're filled with butterflies and all these emotions. And, he said that usually that lasts for about 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It lasts for 2 years and then it kind of
and then you got to work on it, Then
we still got the tingles. You still give me the tingles.
You gave me the tingles last night, babe.
Oh man!
But it's been work. Like seriously, our relationship. It's been work. There's some rough patches that we've gone through and we've been able to overcome, and I'm so proud of where we are today.
Yeah.
That's all.
So yes. So one thing is like when you are in that position, you have to remove yourself.
Yes.
He said, what did he say? He's like, if you do not drink coffee anymore.
Nope.
So no more going to the coffee pot.
Yeah.
And he was saying, he's like, even if it's in the church, he's like, if you're in some part of a group council or whatever, and she's part of that group, you need to get out of that group. You need to stay out of that.
So I'm going to be.
He said, people never regret doing right.
Right.
But you will always regret doing wrong. Yeah. He said 5 years later, you'll be sitting in his office or sitting with a counselor going over the wrong decisions that you made.
Yeah.
But people never regret doing the right thing.
And that's one thing. Just here it comes. As I stated, my love language is affection. And there was a point in our relationship where I wasn't getting it. Like I was feeling empty, and I got to that state where I was getting attention outside of our marriage. And you get those feelings, and the confusion and everything comes into place. And I was so grateful that you and I had connected on a different level to where I came to you and I talked to you about this.
Yeah.
And we were able to get our marriage, get everything back on track.
Yeah. Yep.
And so with us, the one thing that we have had from the beginning that has really helped us from making those mistakes is that we have been able to talk to each other. We've been able to communicate and I think share our vulnerabilities, share the things that we're feeling, what's going on, and not judge the other person. Because I'm sure, when you heard that was like, it was a wake up call for you.
Well, when you told me, like, I remember I was like, shit, man, I'm fucking up. Like, as a husband, I'm not doing what I need to do, you know? And it's not right. So we had to start working on that.
Yeah. And so, yeah, and this is stuff, that it's hard to share, but I think it needs to be shared.
Yeah.
Marriage today is not what it once was. Like, it's so easy to give up. It's so easy to throw in the towel.
So after I told Audrey that we went to a conference,
Mm-hmm.
she was talking about, you know what, if I get married and he does this and he does that, I'm getting a divorce. I'm out. I'm like, hold up, girlfriend. I'm like, hold up. It's not that easy. I was like, you know what? It's not easy. You're just going to give up just like that? Not to say that divorce is wrong. I mean, for religious people or whatever, they may feel like divorce is wrong. For some people, maybe that's the answer. Maybe they're not compatible or whatever. But it just seems like sometimes people like maybe give up sooner than they used to. I don't know.
No. Yes, that's it. It is. It's very easy
it also depends on the relationship. It just depends.
Yeah. But I would say this before you give up, and this is someone, by the way, you got to share. Like, I was someone that immediately would turn to the divorce, like, right?
Yeah, you used to piss me off because you would bring it up all the time. And then I'm like, I kind of made you realize, it's like, why are you always thinking about this? Like, it's almost like you're sabotaging this from the beginning.
And I was.
It's what you always talk about. And
right.
Is that what you want?
Yeah. And I did. I was that person. Like, I was just so... And I was not willing to put up with me being hurt or just I don't know.
Well, you see, like, it's that thought, but I used to tell you also, it's like, that instead of thinking about, if this happens, then this is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Or I'm out. Or it's like,
I was negative.
How about instead of, 20 years from now, we're still going to be together. And we're going to be happier then than we are now. How about that thought?
Right.
Instead of the thought of we're going to get divorced.
Yeah. But too, that came from me feeling that insecurity or not wanting
we're
to
gonna
be
open
hurt
up a whole other...
or babe, I'm trying to, dude, it's so hard to like be very vulnerable on here because I'm getting into something very deep and you're coming in like kind of joking, but I'm trying to get somewhere.
Go for it. I'm just saying that this is now getting into something else. Like, this is coming from not this, but it's from your past.
Right, because people need to know that. Sometimes I was sabotaging our divorce. I was. Like, you nailed it.
Not our divorce.
Our divorce. Our marriage. Our marriage. I was. But it took you to help me recognize that. It took me opening up my eyes to realize why I was sabotaging our marriage. And it came from the broken relationships that I was surrounded in as a child. And seeing the hurt and the distress and the betrayal and all of that.
Yeah.
So regardless of, where you're at in your marriage, if there is something that you feel like there's a disconnect and you're wondering, why am I acting out this way? You have to search for the answer. You have to search for the answer. And a lot of times it may come from your past, something that you've gone through as a child. You know?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Yep.
But it takes a lot. It's a lot of work to work on you. It is. It's a lot of work to work on you. I mean, because there's so much junk that I can't say like that I've been through. And what goes in comes out.
I circled a little prayer here.
Did you?
I won't pray it, but I'll think it.
You'll
and those of you that pray can pray it if you want. But it said, Father, thank you that I don't have to follow my negative emotions. Like, I was like, damn, because that's kind of like the Buddhism. I don't know if it is or not, but, I mean, it is, life is what it is, but you can choose how you're going to deal with situations. So I don't have to follow my negative emotions.
Right.
Yeah. Love edifies. It builds up.
Yeah.
So what else you got, babe? How do we express love? Compliments, kind words, humble words. It said a soft answer turns away anger.
Yeah, I do that all the time.
Yeah, you do.
I do that all the time because I love conquers all. It really does. Love, kindness, it conquers all. If someone comes at you sideways and they're giving you attitude and they're, just because they had a shitty day or whatever it may be, if you come at me and I'm like, baby,
sideways?
I'm so sorry. Like if you're just pissed off and you say something, if I say, I'm so sorry that you feel that way. I did not mean that. I would never want to hurt you or make you feel belittled.
Yeah.
I love you. Are you going to come back at me like, screw you?
Yeah.
No. So if you always come from a place of love, you can never go wrong. But still, there's always somebody who's going to have to be the person that
kind of like, in a way, I remember this, it's kind of like a sales technique, but like when you're like, let's say you're trying to sell a car, right? You're selling a Honda, you're at a Honda dealership, and this person pulls up in a Toyota, and maybe, they're looking at the Hondas and they're like, oh yeah, we have this Toyota. One thing you could do is, Toyotas, they're all right, but they're not that great. They have problems with this. They suck at this. They suck at that. Honda is a great car, but what you're doing is you're telling them that they made a shitty decision in buying the car that they had. And what they're thinking in their head is, I messed up before. I'm not going to mess up again, But if what you do, it's kind of like coming them with the softness instead of like attacking them, like attacking their previous decision is, you know what? You're right. Like Toyotas are awesome. They're a great car and you can't go wrong if you buy a Toyota. Now let me show you something about this Honda. This Honda has all the options and it has all this. So you're kind of disarming the person when you come at them with the soft, you know what I'm saying?
It's just funny because we're talking about
I'm just
love
saying it kind of
and
reminded
relationship
me.
And he's over here comparing relationship to a damn Toyota.
No. What I'm saying is like it kind of disarms the person.
I know, baby.
Like you can't attack them when they've just said something nice to you.
Yeah. You know what was a great thing as well is that he said, and it's in the Bible, like it talks about it, in the Bible, like how can you judge someone else, when you're not perfect? Like here you are pointing fingers when you haven't taken the time to look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Because it's so easy to point fingers. It's so easy just to blame you versus looking in the mirror and getting really down to the core of
that kind of goes back to
responsibility.
What you were saying is that we're all humans. We're all humans and we're all different. And humans don't have the same, as humans, like we don't have the same thoughts and feelings.
Right.
Like I don't have the same thoughts and feelings that you have, and you don't have the same ones that I have. So when it comes to a disagreement or something going on, you're looking at it from your point of view and I'm looking at it from my point of view. And that's when the argument happens.
Yeah.
So instead of arguing or trying to win the argument, you want to look for answers. Mm-hmm. Don't try to win the argument. Try to look for answers.
Right.
There's not this next podcast that's coming up, but the one after, we're going to talk about this book that you and I have been listening to. And there's something that he talks about being wrong. I think that was chapter 7. I wrote a bunch of stuff down about that, about being wrong and how you should look at how you're wrong. Like, instead of always trying to figure out how you're right, try to figure out how you're wrong.
Right.
Because if you try to figure out how you're wrong all the time, that's how you grow.
I think you and I, him and I were having a disagreement, or we were talking about how, we got into a disagreement. We were at each other. We were not happy about the discussion. And
what was it? You remember?
We were upstairs and we figured out each other's triggers. We talked about it before. I was feeling, I was questioning you about something. So in Miguel's past, Miguel growing up with his dad, he wasn't, his grandmother actually, raised him.
Yeah.
And
for the most part.
And all he ever wanted was he wanted a family. He wanted his family together. He wanted to be, with his dad and you know.
And as an adult, this is what I want. I want to have a happy wife. I want to have happy kids. Yeah, that's what I want.
And me, growing up, I'm like, all that love equals hurt, betrayal. I don't want any of that. I don't want kids. I don't want to be a single mother, because that whole love thing is just going to end up in a divorce.
Because that's how it happens. You're going to be a single mother.
Yeah, I'm going to be a single mother struggling. I don't want any of that. And so when we both got together, you have both of these screwed up people coming together, different triggers, right? Different personalities, different love languages. I mean, we're totally opposite. But somehow we were able to communicate and figure out what our differences were.
Yeah.
And make it work.
Yep. Damn it. That I'm trying to figure out exactly what it was that we were talking, because you were putting something on me. I can't remember.
I can't either. But
anyway.
Either way, like once you start talking and communicating, you will start to recognize why you're feeling the way you're feeling. And so that was the first time ever where we realized each other's triggers. Like you realized your own trigger, I realized my trigger, and why we were at each other in this discussion, argument, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, we both, you know what? We made a clip. I would have to go back. If you go through on Facebook or on YouTube, there's clips from the podcast. And if you go through some of the clips, you'll be able to find one of them. I can't remember exactly what it is, but we had a moment where we both figured out, you know what? You're acting like this because of what happened to you when you were a kid. And like it was kind of like you were giving me shit about something because of your experience as a kid. Yeah. And I was getting pissed off. And like, I think for a second there, I was kind of like, I stopped and I was like, this is kind of irrational for me. Like, why am I getting so pissed off?
Yes, that's what you said. Yeah. And then you recognized.
And then I was like, oh, it's because of my childhood. Like, I'm fucked up from way back. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it's like, it was like our childhoods growing up were fighting with each other.
So crazy.
It's freaking nuts.
And we looked at each other and it was just,
it was funny.
It was funny, but it felt good to know that we are like on the same page.
Yeah. Like we both realized it at the same time.
Right. Right.
Yep. So one thing that he also mentioned, this was actually pretty cool. Like when he would get, this is Gary Chapman, when he does relationship counseling. When he would get a couple in, he would split them up and put them in two separate rooms. And he would have them write a list of everything that's wrong with their partner. Oh, yeah. And he's like, you have 5 minutes and start writing everything that is wrong with your wife. You write everything that's wrong with your husband. And they would sit there and they would start writing a list. And he would come back in and they would still be writing. Right? Yeah. And then he would grab the papers and he would put them away. And then he's like, okay. And then he would give him a new piece of paper. He's like, okay, now I want you to write down all the things that are messed up about you. And they could maybe get one down.
Yep. He said not one person had two. 4.
They couldn't get 4. Yeah. They couldn't get 4 or more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, how is it that you can put a full page full of all the shit that's wrong with your partner, but you're damn near perfect.
Right.
Right.
But that's why, like, I ask you, and this is the thing, he's like, being able to take criticism from each other, like good criticism, like, like, and I ask you this, like, because for me, in order for me to see what I'm doing wrong, I think it's easier for you to tell me. And that's why what he said, like, if there's something that you feel that she could work on, talk to her about it. Ask her, hey, there's something I want to talk to you about. He's like, if you have 10, 20 things that you're trying to get them to work on, don't tell them all that at once. Don't overload them with all of that.
So what he was saying was, you want to do one every other week. Like, this was his strategy.
Yeah.
So, like, let's say I tell Sonja, oh, but before I start telling you the things that are fucked up that I want you to work on, it would be better for me to give some compliments.
Right.
To appreciate
he said at least 3.
The things that you do.
Yeah.
Hey, babe, I appreciate you getting up early and making my coffee. And I appreciate when I get home from work that you have something for me to eat, because I haven't ate, and and you wash my gis when they're dirty so that I have something clean to wear when I go to jiu-jitsu. And automatically, like, you feel good because I'm telling you that I appreciate the things that you're doing for me. And if you could, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Then you're like, oh, well, I'm doing pretty good. Maybe, I guess I could do that.
Yeah.
But if I just start dropping, you know what? You need to work on this. And another thing is this. And while you're at it, this. And then you're like, you know what, motherfucker? You're not perfect either. You know what you need to do is, and then you start just coming back at me. So that's, you have to be tactful. So what he was saying is that you can take turns going back and forth. Like, I can let you know something, and then you can let me know something. And then together over the year, 52 weeks, there's 26 things that I've worked on, and there's 26 things that you've worked on. And shit, imagine if we're working on 26 things throughout the year. That's a pretty big impact that it'll have on your relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
for sure. What was, towards the end, and this is something
well, before we move on to that, but he was saying that if you're looking at your partner and they're 95% imperfect, right?
Yes.
They're 95% imperfect, and you look at yourself and you're like, well, I'm probably about 5% imperfect, right?
Right.
Well, then you have to take ownership. They may be messed up in your eyes. They got a lot of shit that they need to work on. Mm-hmm. But you need to work on your 5%. Don't worry about their 95%. Work on your stuff. And if they bring something up like we mentioned, you can work on that. But I wrote down ownership. Like, it's taking ownership for yourself.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's what everything in life is, just taking ownership.
Yeah.
Taking ownership. It's, again, looking in the mirror and being so honest with yourself about things that you need to work on. And a lot of times, sometimes you're blinded by it. Like, you're unaware of the things that you do because it's been normal for you.
Yeah.
It's the norm. So that's why it's great to be okay with having open criticism. What's a better word for that?
Constructive criticism?
Constructive criticism. You know, and that's every aspect of your life.
Yeah.
Was there something you wanted to share?
No, so the book that we listened to was 5 Love Languages. Yes. And I'll put a link to that in the video, in the description of the podcast, wherever you're listening to it. And if you wanted to pick up a physical book and you just want to go through our Amazon link, you can go to oppositesattractpod.com. You can click on the Support the Show tab at the top. On our website, you can also watch videos. You can listen to the podcast. You can there's tabs at the top where you can follow us on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. It's got all our social media. But if you click on the Support the Show tab and you click, that'll take you to our Amazon link. And anything that you purchase through that Amazon link will also help out the show. And there's also a tab for Trust Inc. And Trust Inc. is?
We are a nationwide mobile notary agency. We do a lot of work with title companies, law firms, individuals as well. So if you need a document notarized, look us up, let us know. We'll be there to help you. We are also independent associates with Legal Shield. And what Legal Shield does is it gives you access to attorneys, and it does not matter where you live, okay, for a small monthly fee.
Excellent.
Yes.
So, and the plans are different in every state.
Yes.
If you give us a call, we can share the information with you if you're interested. So yeah, let us know.
The one thing, well, towards the end, and this is something I felt even though we were in a room full of people, he had us get up and face your partner, grab each other's hands, and look in each other's eyes. And just doing that, I mean, he had us, I can't remember what he had us saying, like, you know, working on being a better husband. I want to be a better husband, want to be a better wife. And we're talking to each other, but we're looking into each other's eyes.
It was kind of like I'm sorry for the mistakes that I've made. I know I've made mistakes in the past, and I'm sorry for the mistakes that I've made. And I want to ask for your forgiveness or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
But how did you feel during that point? Like, how did that make you feel? No, like seriously.
No, if I felt good.
It was very intimate. It was very intimate. And it's like, I don't think we've ever done that before. No. Like just our marriage, when we got married, we did.
But we were cracking up when we got married.
I know.
And we were hungover.
I felt that same connection.
Yeah.
But it's been that long since we actually looked each other in the eyes and felt that deep connection for each other.
Yeah.
Like that was such a cool experience.
Yeah,
I was like crying. I was like, I'm going to cry.
Yeah. That was cool.
It was cool. And I just have hope for every married couple out there, because I do believe that you have what it takes. Like if you loved each other, if there was love in the relationship, it can be saved. Like I feel that 100%.
Well, there was that story that he told about the guy that was a mechanic, and he worked, and then he had a shed in the back where he would work on Saturdays and in the evenings. Mm-hmm. And pretty much all he did was he would go to work, and then he would come home and he would be outside doing his thing. He didn't pay any attention to his wife at all, didn't do anything. And his wife was just like, our marriage is over.
Yeah.
And she was actually on her way to go get a divorce, to go meet with a divorce attorney to file the paperwork for a divorce. And before she did that, I don't know how or what or
she
why.
She went to see Gary Chapman.
But she went to go see Gary Chapman. And he said that he wanted to try something with her. Before she decided to get a divorce, that he wanted to try something with her. And that together they were going to try and figure out what his love language was. Mm-hmm. And that they were going to work on him, not worried about him.
Right.
Like, just let him be who he is. Mm-hmm. But we're going to work on him.
And his love language ended up being acts of service.
Yeah.
So for 6 months, she said for 2 months, she was doing everything. Like she was having sex with him. She was cleaning up the house, making dinner for him, like doing all these acts of services. Said, he
would be like, what are you up to?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And she said, I've done
to be a better wife.
Yeah, I don't know if she said I went
a better
to this
wife.
thing. She's like, yeah, and I'm focusing on becoming a better wife.
Yep.
And she kept doing it, and he just kept doing his same old thing.
Yep.
And he kept doing it, and it was like another 2 months pass, and he asked her again, hey, what's up? Like, what are you up to? What are you doing? Mm-hmm. And she said the same thing, like, I'm working on becoming a better wife.
Yeah.
And it happened again and again until finally, I think it was like 4 months in, that they had dinner. And at the end of dinner, he asked her, is there something that I can help you with? And that is something that he hadn't done in forever.
Yeah.
Or maybe had never done. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
But at that point, things started, or like he did the dishes and went back outside.
Yeah.
But then from that moment on, at the end of dinner, he would help with something and then go back outside.
He would always ask her, is there something I can do for you?
And then little by little, they started rebuilding their relationship.
Yep.
So it went from a complete disaster, like something that just was not going to happen, to
rebuilding their marriage.
Rebuilding their marriage. So that was pretty cool. I have something that I wrote down here. It was just 3 questions that you can ask the person that you're with. And that's, what can I do to help you? How can I make your life easier? And how can I be a better husband or wife? And if you really, like when you think about these questions, like if you really do care about your relationship or about your future, about your marriage, I mean, these are questions that you should ask.
Yeah.
Like we're talking all this stuff, and I mean, we have work to do.
Yeah.
I posted this post on Instagram and on Facebook, and it's the truth. Like I feel we have a great marriage, but it's just like everything.
Yeah.
It's like when we were with Daquan last week, we were talking about success.
Yeah.
And I said, like, I feel like we already are a success, but it doesn't mean that we're done.
No,
we're not done.
Yes. That's why Gary Chapman said once a year, go to a marriage conference.
That was cool. Yeah.
Another thing he said was read a book together. Read a marriage book together and discuss it. Say, okay, hey, we're going to read chapter 1 this month.
It's crazy because he mentioned that and we just started doing that. Like the subtle art of not giving a fuck. We were like, you told me this book is great. And then I started listening to it. I was like, you know what? That is, it sounds interesting. I'm going to finish this book and I'm going to start listening to that book too. And then we've been listening to it at the same time. And then we have stuff that we're going to talk about. So not the next podcast, the one after that, we're going to go over that book. And then hopefully I can get a guest, one of my old friends from childhood. He can call in and explain a little bit about Buddhism. Yeah. But before we get out of here, there was, man, I wish I had that paper. But we had to write down the things that were messed up, like where we personally mess up. Mm-hmm. And I know that, I wish I had it because I wrote like 4 or 5 things down. But I know that I don't like to be wrong. I know that. When we argue, I want to be right. And in my mind, I feel right. Mm-hmm. But I can't be. It can't be right all the time. You just can't. Like we talked about earlier, you know, it's not the way it is. And so a lot of times I'm short. Like if I get pissed off, I get angry, I'm short with you and I'll say things that...
Are you trying to make me cry?
No, I'm just, you know, it's just stuff that I got to work on.
Yeah.
But I can't remember the other things, but I did write them down and I'll work on them.
Oh, I love you.
I love you too.
Oh.
I got to break. It's getting dusty in here. I got to break it up. Is there anything you want to say to me before we get out of here?
No, I'm perfect.
You're good. You're right. You're all fucked up.
You're all fucked up. No. No, I'm excited for us.
Yes.
You know, I know at times like I get so busy, you know, with everything that's going on, and both of us are very busy, and there's times where I'm just short with you.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, that's something that I want to work on. I mean, I'm short, but I'm talking about like not stature. No. You know, I'm just excited because
it was a great conference.
I know that we are on the right path. Yeah. And what I got from that, like we have such a great platform with this podcast. And I feel that we can, the more we learn.
You look like you're meditating.
I am. The more we can help others. Like the more we can help save marriages, because there's so many broken marriages out there. There's so many people that are missing each other. There's so many people that even though they live together, they're not together.
Yeah.
And marriage is not what it once was. You don't hear people say anymore, you know, oh, we've been married for even 5 years. People are like, wow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so if we can help other couples figure it out, then we're a success. Like, just, you know what I'm saying? Being able to make a difference.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I am thankful that you brought this platform to my attention, because this was your idea.
Thanks, babe. I love you. It was a great conference.
too.
And we are 46 episodes in. And one thing before we get out of here, it's time to go. That really excites me about the podcast. Like, I've been excited since the beginning. But like I've mentioned it to you earlier today, and I kind of thought about, I was like, you know what? If this is what we do for a living, eventually, like, our job is to get better and share it with everybody else.
Right.
Is to grow and help everybody else at the same time. I mean, because we got a lot of shit to work on. So, but that would be like, how crazy would it be that that's what you do?
Yeah.
You know,
No, that would
like
be,
my job is to live a great life, to get better, to have a great relationship with my wife, to have awesome kids, and we put it all out there for everybody to see, so that they can hopefully learn from the mistakes that we make and from the successes that we have.
Yeah.
So, and we couldn't do it without you guys out there listening. If you guys have any questions, get the cell phone, number.
The number.
You know, if there's anything that you guys want to ask us, if there's any questions that you guys
comments,
have based on what we've talked about today, or anything that we've talked about in the past, any questions at all, you want to send us a comment, leave us a voicemail, give us a call at you can call us at
480-912-5128. Again, that's 480-912-5128.
All right. Thank you guys for being with us. On Thursday, we went to a parenting seminar. So we're going to drop an extra podcast in the middle of February. So look out for that one. But our next podcast, we're going to talk about that parenting seminar that we went to.
Focus on becoming better, doing better, you know?
Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being with us. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.